What is up, everybody? Let me know if you can hear me because we've tried this a couple times here and we're not having any luck. It's like every day we have a little bit of a technical difficulty, but hopefully the sound is working and we are back for day 2 of Bills training camp. Wrapped up around noon today. I rode out at the stadium, drove home. That's going to be the usual cadence here as we go through training camp because we're not allowed. What is up, everybody? Let me know if you can hear me. We're not allowed to shoot anything at the stadium on the ground. So it's better for me to just get home. And here we go. So let me know if you can hear me in the comments here. If you have any questions about camp, what are you wondering about from what happened out at One Bills Drive? I would love to talk to you guys all and answer your specific questions while remembering there's only certain things we could talk about because I can't talk about rep count, where guys lined up, what team they were on, but I can tell you what I thought about how players looked. So I'm going to get to that. And there's a couple guys I want to start off with. But before we get to that, some housekeeping stuff. Syracuse.com, New York Upstate. Head over there right now. I have my article, my observations from camp today. You can read that as we go through this live show here. And also make sure you go and wherever you get your podcasts, Apple, Stitcher, Spotify, find Shout, a Buffalo football podcast. Subscribe, rate, and review. I'm going to do my best solo job here today on this episode. We're going to be live again tomorrow. We're going to have 3 episodes this week before we even get to Thursday. So we're bringing a lot of content to you guys from Bill's training camp. Liam asked, how's Singletary and Moss looking? And that's a great question. I'm going to talk about Mario Addison in a moment, but let's start with Zack Moss. Zack Moss was maybe offensively speaking, the star of camp today. He really looked comfortable. He looked, number one, he got a lot of looks. He was running the ball quite a bit. He made an absolute outstanding catch over the shoulder grab down the right sideline. Josh Allen, picture perfect throw. If you want to see the video, go ahead to Twitter right now. John Scott, check him out from Spectrum News. I think it's at John Scott TV. He will be actually on the Shout Football podcast tomorrow. He got a great shot of the catch, Zack Moss. And that's a big dynamic of this offense now that's going to completely change things in terms of what we can see Brian Dable do with this offense. Zack Moss is a guy, he can run the ball. We saw that today. They did a 11 on 11 drill, and you might hear some woofing and barking in the backgrounds. That's my dogs. Sorry. I'll get to him too, Sean, in a moment. But they're on an 11-11, one of the drills, they went down the field. I think they started about the 40-yard line, and they gave the offense, led primarily by Josh Allen, the chance to kind of drive it down the field. And it was Zack Moss who made a couple huge plays. One was an 8-yard run just up the gut. He looked like he, barreled into that second level. Saw the physicality, the toughness, but I'm telling you, this guy's pretty quick. Seeing him live, I've been impressed with his quickness, his ability to make moves, and that's something that I think even Brandon Beane talked about after they drafted Zack Moss, that they had that expectation for him. So I think I was going into this season with, my expectations tempered a little bit for Zack Moss because, rookie has to pick up the playbook. He's behind a guy like Devin Singletary, but I think we could see a pretty cool role for Zack Moss right out of the gate. And then they gave him a lot of looks today, and he really did the most with them. There was one play. It was a screen pass where, once he hits that second and third level, it's almost like he's seeking out contact. He wants to put his hat on a defender's hat. And you saw that every time he touched the ball. And then on the 11 on 11 drive that I talked about, where he had that 8-yard run, he finished it off, 2-yard touchdown run, drug 2 defenders with him into the end zone that were trying to bring him down. So this is a physical back, a guy that likes to, seek out contact. And this is a good sign. Early on here in training camp, we're seeing a guy that already has been very comfortable with the opportunities that he's been given. Didn't see a lot from Devin Singletary today. I think that's just sometimes the way things go in training camp. What guys get opportunities and are able to make plays in certain spots. And again, these aren't live practices yet. They're not tackling full go yet. It's thud up still. So we saw that play out today. I'm going to talk about AJ Epinesa in a bit. I'll touch on him quickly. And again, we're coming back tomorrow, so there'll be a lot more tomorrow night, a more expansive version of the podcast, the full hour. We'll have John Scott in. But I want to give you some of my initial impressions while they're fresh in my mind. The star of today, offense or defense, was Mario Addison. I mean, this guy was just absolutely lethal rushing the passer. I think that there was one 11-on-11 drill where there was 2 sacks in the first 3 plays. I think Mario Addison could have been credited with both of them. And I wrote it in the story. Somebody from the defensive side of the ball on the sidelines, they said, "Hey, Mario," they screamed out, "they're going to have to find somebody to block you," because it was amazing. I mean, play after play after play, it was Mario Addison 97 in the offensive backfield. So I think, they found somebody in Addison now who, obviously he has the versatility to play in a bunch of different ways. And Sean McDermott even said that. I mean, he said, I think it was right before training camp, or it might have been his June press conference, that, the idea with Addison is, again, they like his versatility. They can play him on the edge. They can play him on the inside at times. And there's so many guys. Quentin Jefferson can do both. AJ Epinesa, who somebody asked about him. The thing about AJ Epinesa, I mean, there was maybe a rush or two where I was like, wow, that was a good rep for him today. But overall, from a football perspective, nothing's really standing out yet in terms of what he's been able to do. But I will say he is an absolute animal of a man. I mean, he is huge. You look out there and you see 57, and it throws you for a loop for a little bit, because you're like, wait a second, 57, that's, you just think that's Lorenzo Alexander. And then you do the double take and it's AJ Epinesa, and you're like, man, this dude is just absolutely massive. So I'm very interested to see, once we get into live game action, or maybe some simulated scrimmages or anything later in camp, we get a better look at it, and we could see how he's actually doing play to play. I always tell people, definitely go follow Joe Biscaglia at the Athletic. He does a great job of breaking down the line play. He's really got an eye for it. Even in this setting where we're kind of way back and we have to kind of look forward, sometimes through a line of players, it can be tough to see things, but he does a really good job. I love talking shop with him. But Addison was really great today. I see some other, Andre asks about the O-line. There's a question about Jake Fromm. I'll get to both of those. The interesting thing to me is, like, defense is always ahead of offense in, these early camp situations. There's been nothing surprising about the early on, how these two units have gone against each other. I think there's been some wins in the last 2 days for guys like Stephon Diggs, John Brown, Cole Beasley today had a really nice catch, probably about a 15-yarder. They were kind of found the middle of the zone, soft spot of the zone. And I think it was Trey White that was in coverage. But the defensive backfield has been absolutely lights out already. I mean, Stephon Diggs has only landed in matchups with Tre'Davious White a couple times. There was one today where I noticed he went out for, he ran probably about a 15-yard seam route, in route, and Tre'Davious White just read the play perfectly. And it's just so seamless the way that these guys play the game. Micah Hyde had an interception today in 7-on-7. So obviously a little bit different setup, but he just jumped the route, intercepted the ball, ran it back for a touchdown. Jordan Poyer had a pass breakup. One interesting note, and this is something very, interesting to monitor. Isaiah Hodgins is an absolute beast as well. I mean, this guy's at 6'4". He's wearing a red non-contact jersey. We don't know what the injury stems from, but he is out there. He's going through all the drills. He's going through all the warm-ups and everything like that. But he made a catch. Levi Wallace was in coverage where, he ran about 10 yards on a hook route, came back in, and, Levi Wallace had position. He was in front of him. And Isaiah Hodgins, Josh Allen just threw it up high, and Isaiah Hodgins barely had to do anything and brought it down. So he's a very interesting player. He's got another guy, a lot of versatility. I think Duke Williams, Robert Foster, who has landed on concussion protocol, just so you guys all know. He appeared on today's injured list, and John asked about any updates on Foster. And the only thing is, I did see somebody retweeted the Bills video from yesterday where it looked like Foster kind of had Josh Norman land on his head a little bit. I don't know if that's where he suffered the concussion. At some point when he comes out of the protocol, we'll be able to maybe ask him about it, or Sean McDermott. But Robert Foster, Isaiah McKenzie, Duke Williams, all three of those guys are going to have a really tough time making this roster. And I was talking to Marcel too, socially distanced, of course. We have little beepers that make sure that we're 6 feet apart. And we were talking about Duke Williams made just an unbelievable contested catch against Ike Brown, the rookie UDFA cornerback. And it was one of those, quintessential Duke Williams practice highlights. I mean, the guy has just become a highlight reel in practice. And I said, Duke could have a perfect training camp, really, in every way. And if Isaiah Hodgins continues to play the way that he's played the last 2 games, at being a 6th-round pick, a guy that Brandon Beane just invested, the organization just invested in, it's going to be really hard for these guys to knock a guy like Hodgins out, because I think Gabe Davis is a lock. Andre Roberts is a lock. Go listen to Heath Farwell talk about Andre Roberts. I mean, the guy, he's looked at as an elite return man, a guy that teams go out of their way to try to, not kick to not have to deal with them. So I think he's making this roster. A lot of good things happening on the offensive side of the ball. Maybe one thing that not so great, Jake Fromm, it's a tough situation for him in the sense that Josh Allen is, Sean McDermott mentioned it before we went into this thing. He's going to get the majority of the work because they're trying to get him ready for the season in 3 weeks. So Josh Allen's going to be out there, getting a lot of work with a lot of different people. And that's been the case. And Jake Fromm, the few chances that he got today and yesterday, nothing really stood out. They were doing a lot of short passing game work today. They were doing it in warmups in some of the 7-on-7 stuff. And then they tried to execute that in the 11-on-11 work as well. And Jake Fromm, just nothing stood out, and he only has this small, window to make an impact. And on the one play where, it was memorable, it was a muffed handoff to Zack Moss. It looked like he stepped funny on his back pedal and just kind of lunged at Zack Moss, lost the ball. The ball scooted back about 10 yards. He kind of tried to, scurry down and dive for it. And I think he did recover it. But, he's a guy that's got to make an impression. And so far, again, just 2 days, it hasn't been an impression that I was really wild with. Kicker update. I got 5 minutes. I got another. I'm all over the place. I'm doing a fantasy football Bills preview at 3:45, heading on Rochester radio today. Going to be doing Buffalo Fanatics tonight with my guy Rico. So I'm all over the place. So I apologize. It's going to be short and sweet, but we'll hit this more tomorrow night. I want to give you guys an update on the kicker battle. Tyler Bass went yesterday. Stephen Hauschka went today, and Hauschka did a little bit better than Tyler Bass did yesterday, who went 6 of 9. They started it off at about a 35, 38 yard field goal, and then they go back 3 yards, 3 yards, 3 yards, 3 yards. And he went 6 of 9 yesterday. Today, Stephen Hauschka went 6 of 7. And so what that means is, the less you miss, the less you kick. Apparently, it's 6 kicks. He missed one from 50, I believe. Maybe it was 53, but he ended up going 2 for 3 in the kicks that you guys all care about. 50 plus yards. Stephen Hauschka, 2 for 3. He hit a 50-yarder, a 53-yarder, and I think he missed the 53-yarder on the first try. So, that's your update there. It looks like Hauschka maybe, if that's the way that we're forced to track this battle, that's the way that it's going to be. And he made more kicks, made the same amount of kicks, but in less kicks. So I guess in that sense, he's winning. But we'll probably see more from Tyler Bass in a bit. A couple more questions before I get out of here. Zack Moss, in terms of, can he win the starting job? The way I went into this is, and I think Devin Singletary said it best when he appeared on Good Morning Football, is, this is a 2-back league. I mean, there's no way around it. You look at all the greatest backfields, around the league. And I always say the model for how you want to build your running backs room is New Orleans from a few years ago when they had Mark Ingram and Alvin Kamara. And I think if you can have two, whether it be 2 elite level backs or a guy that may be on the verge of that status, or another really good back, that's when you become really hard to deal with. And I don't think the Bills had that last year. I know that Frank Gore said, He thought he could have rushed for 1,000 yards if he had been given more carries and they hadn't gone to Devin Singletary. I don't think that would have been the case. I think that, on this roster, and again, these are just early returns, but just from everything I read about Zack Moss, I think that these are two running backs in Moss and Singletary now that have the potential to be a 1,000-yard back in this league. So you're excited about that. You're really excited about, how he's flashing in the passing game early in training camp here. And this is something that I thought Devin Singletary did great with last training camp. It's kind of previewed the season. I don't think that there's any weaknesses in their games in terms of what they can do. Now, Devin Singletary struggled to stay healthy last year, early in the season, missed a couple games, came back, played the rest of the way, had a really good second half of the season. Zack Moss had a big injury last year too. So you want to monitor them, see if they can stay healthy for the long run, but we'll see how that goes. Let me see if you guys have any other questions before I get out of here. What else was there? Somebody else I wanted to mention. This is usually a good time for Ryan to talk while I look at the comments and think about what I wanted to mention. The Wallace and Norman competition, like I said, I can't really get into, where they're lining up and on what team, but I thought Josh Norman has been solid. I think he's been solid over the course of the first 2 days. I think that there's been some moments where he's been beat. I think there's been moments where he's made some plays. I think his physicality has been evident. I think he wants to assert himself physically. The dynamic between the two sides is already so fun to watch because, the competition is very fierce out there. You got the offense talking a little bit. You got the defense led by Poyer and Hyde and White in the defensive backfield, definitely taking their chance to talk when they can. So, we'll see how that plays out. Levi Wallace missed practice yesterday. He was back today. Like I said, he gave up that one play to Isaiah Hodgins, which was a nice highlight for the offense. And, the way that this receiver room has been built now, you have different flavors for Allen to work with. You've got some guys with size like Isaiah Hodgins and Gabe Davis, even Stephon Diggs, who can get up. Even at 6 foot, I feel like his jumping ability makes him more of a big, a bigger target for Allen just because of his catch radius. And so it's going to be interesting. There's so many more options for Josh Allen in this offense. The rotation on the O-line, my man, Brad, I can't talk about the rotation on the O-line. I can't talk about that. I will say somebody asked me who I thought was the best offensive lineman today. And after really thinking about, the reps where I was really able to peer through the line and see some of the clashes, I thought Deion Dawkins played great. He continued all of the pressure that I noticed today. And early on in 11-on-11, Josh Allen was dealing with quite a bit of pressure. There was a lot of sacks. There was a lot of, short passes just to get out of some trouble. But not a lot of that pressure was coming from the left side. So, Deion Dawkins, very physical presence, veteran presence. Vashawn Joseph, I'll just go through here. He is still in the red jersey. He's playing, but I'm not. Nothing stands out too much yet about those guys. And, as this again goes back to what we were talking about at the beginning with Josh Allen. I mean, a lot of the starters, are going to get a lot of time. That's what Sean McDermott said. So when you're talking about some of these depth guys, it's not as much of a sample size to dive into. I mean, Jake Fromm, I can't even tell you how many times he was on the field today, but I noticed one time he was kind of just off to the side, playing catch while they were going through some of the drills, and that's just going to be the case. In terms of not too much from the punter battle, Sean, I'll keep you posted on that. Tight ends, Dawson Knox had a nice catch today over the middle after dropping one yesterday, which on what I believe was his only target. Then he had a nice little catch and run. But I think there was a fumble at the end. The defense was claiming it was a fumble. It's hard to tell in this training camp setting, but Tyler Croft has looked strong. Jason Kroom has looked strong when he's been out there. Obviously, Tommy Sweeney still on the pup, the active pup with the foot injury. But that's my time, guys. I gotta get out of here. I hope this was a helpful update. Head over to the site. some more details on what I witnessed today out at the facility. We will be back out there tomorrow, and we will be live tomorrow, special time, 7:30. Make sure you're subscribed on YouTube, Facebook page. John Scott from Spectrum News, my buddy Ryan Talbot will be back in the co-host chair, and we will bring you another episode of the Shout Football Podcast.